Sunlight spilled across Willow Street, slipping through gaps in brick buildings and painting the worn cobblestones gold. Children's laughter echoed from the playground nearby, bouncing off the walls of small shops and cafes. The faint hum of traffic mixed with the hiss of a bus and the soft clatter of coins in a passerby's pocket. Every ordinary sound felt amplified in the gentle morning light. Mr. Thomas, an elderly man with thin white hair and a slightly frayed coat, shuffled down the street, adjusting his scarf as the sunlight caught his eyes. His worn shoes tapped the pavement rhythmically, a quiet metronome in the city's soft hum. Today was not like any other day. Today he faced Mr. Whitmore, the landlord who had spent months mocking him over unpaid rent. Thomas's hands tightened instinctively around the strap of a small satchel. Inside, papers that could change everything waited silently. Across the street, Whitmore leaned casually against his polished black car, sunlight glinting off its chrome. His tailored suit caught every ray, reflecting confidence and wealth. He noticed Thomas and smirked. "Late again, old man," he called, voice carrying over the faint morning bustle. The smirk lingered like a shadow over the bright morning, sharp against the warmth of the day. Thomas blinked upward, letting the sunlight wash over him, steadying his resolve. "Mr. Whitmore, I received a letter yesterday. It mentions my property." His words were almost lost under the city's sounds, but Whitmore waved dismissively. "Property? You mean the apartment you can't even pay for?" he said, laughing. "Some people just can't manage their own lives." Thomas stood steady. Slowly, he reached into his satchel and pulled out the papers, letting the sunlight strike the edges. Dust motes drifted lazily in the rays, as if the city itself paused to witness. Thomas's head lifted, posture straight, revealing the quiet dignity earned from years of endurance. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Thomas said, holding the document higher. "Perhaps we've underestimated each other." The sunlight caught the edges of the letter, glinting sharply. Neighbors began to gather, drawn by the unusual intensity of the moment. Mrs. Collins from the corner shop peeked over the railing. Children paused mid-laugh, sensing the tension. Thomas held up the letter, letting the sun illuminate the text, a will confirming his inheritance, a trust left in his name. The street hushed. Whitmore's smirk faltered, his posture rigid. For the first time, his confidence wavered. "I'll handle the rest legally," Thomas added, voice calm. "But know this, respect is owed to everyone, not just those with wealth." The morning sun flared gently behind him, dust motes drifting in the light as he turned to leave, walking along the bright street. His resolve evident in every step. The community center courtyard glowed under the noon sun. Shadows stretched softly across the brick pavement, mingling with the golden light. Neighbors and tenants had gathered, murmuring as they sensed something unusual. Thomas stepped onto the small stage, satchel in hand. Whitmore was there too, adjusting his tie, radiating authority, though the sunlight revealed subtle cracks in his confidence. Thomas cleared his throat. "I have something to share," he said. His voice carried across the open courtyard, steady and clear. The sun illuminated his lined face, each crease a testament to patience and endurance. Whitmore smirked, squinting. "I hope this isn't another excuse for tardiness," he said. Thomas pulled the documents from his satchel and held them high. Sunlight flared on the paper, drawing every eye. The crowd leaned in. Whitmore's smirk wavered as he saw the edges of the will glint in the sun. "This is part of a will," Thomas said calmly. "It confirms my inheritance, a trust left in my name." Whispers ran through the crowd. Neighbors leaned forward, squinting. The sunlight seemed conspiratorial, highlighting the contrast between Thomas's patience and Whitmore's arrogance. That Whitmore's confident posture stiffened. Thomas continued, voice firm. "Respect is owed to everyone, regardless of their financial standing. It is earned, not demanded." The sun flared behind him, haloing his figure, casting long shadows that reached across the courtyard. Whitmore swallowed hard. He opened his mouth, but the words stuck. The sunlight reflected off his cufflinks, illuminating the defeat he could not deny. Thomas lowered the papers, letting the warm light emphasize calm dignity over confrontation. Neighbors began to murmur, some nodding quietly. Children, sensing the tension, quieted their play. The city's hum, the hiss of espresso machines, distant buses, footsteps on concrete, amplified the weight of the moment. Thomas stepped down from the stage, walking among the neighbors. He nodded and smiled gently. Whitmore remained, pale in the sunlight, standing humbled. Thomas's calm and integrity spoke louder than any argument or shout. The afternoon light bathed the courtyard, illuminating dust motes drifting lazily, creating a cinematic glow around every gesture. By mid-afternoon, Thomas and Whitmore stood across from each other. Whitmore finally spoke, voice subdued. I underestimated you. Thomas nodded, letting the sun warm his shoulders, accepting acknowledgement without gloating. The afternoon softened the streets with a golden glow. Thomas walked slowly through the park, the sun catching the white strands of his hair and highlighting every line of his face. The distant hum of traffic and children's laughter formed a calm soundtrack. Whitmore followed at a distance, hesitant. The confrontation in the courtyard had changed him. He no longer carried arrogance. The sunlight reflected his humility. Thomas adjusted his coat against the soft breeze, moving with quiet purpose. A park bench overlooking a small fountain, Thomas sat. Water rippled in the sunlight, scattering flecks of gold across the worn stone. He watched children play, listening to footsteps and the faint hiss of a cafe espresso machine. The day felt lighter. Whitmore approached. Thomas, I underestimated you, he said again, quietly. Eyes softened by the sunlight. Thomas looked up. It's about understanding, integrity, and the way we treat each other, he said. The words merged with the warmth of the afternoon, reflecting in every face around them. Whitmore nodded, extending a tentative hand. Thomas shook it gently, the sun flaring softly behind them. Thomas used his inheritance to reopen the local youth center, repair the cafe, and rebuild community spaces. Every act was under daylight, sunlight catching dust motes, reflections in windows, warmth on faces. Children helped place bricks, laughing as sunlight flared in their hair. Thomas moved among them, nodding, adjusting his coat, offering quiet smiles. Whitmore assisted, humbled and quiet, carrying materials carefully, learning to serve rather than dominate. The sunlight flared softly over the courtyard, illuminating every gesture, every small act of kindness. By late afternoon, Thomas stood outside the newly restored youth center. Sunlight filtered through trees, casting gentle shadows across bright walls. Children's laughter rang out, carrying the message of hope and renewal. Thomas rested a hand on a child's shoulder, dust motes drifting in the warm air. Whitmore worked nearby, quietly helping, transformed by the day's revelations. The final image lingered, sunlight flaring softly behind Thomas, reflecting off his white hair and lined face, illuminating the community around him. Children laughed. Whitmore assisted quietly. The warmth, light, and dignity of every gesture underscored the moral. Wealth is measured not in money, but in the lives we uplift. True wealth isn't measured in pounds or dollars, but in the lives we lift as we rise.